Uh, I've decided to temporarily retire the Panic Index. The Panic Index, when I started it, and you'll notice I didn't do one this morning, it's not fun anymore. It was supposed to be this fun little thing where I just said, all right, this is what I think the panic is right now, and it could be fans, it could be teams. I thought it was kind of fun. And it was turning into I was disrespecting certain teams and oh this is dumb and then all the downvotes start and it's like you know this isn't what it was meant to be. I have the power rankings. I know how hotly contested the power rankings are every week. I expect that. But to have one in the middle of the week that was becoming hotly contested on some level as well, I was like, that's not what this was meant to be. So, buyers, sellers, standing pat. I thought this would be kind of a fun thing to do. Do this every 2 weeks on Wednesdays up until the trade deadline and see if teams move around. So let's see how it goes. And I got a whole new set of magnets set to go, almost a full set. Basically, what happened is that the Tops has released a set of stickers this year, and the set is 629 stickers. Trying to collect all those stickers is going to cost a lot of money, so I'm not spending that amount of money on stickers. So I ordered them individually, but some sellers were sold out of some stickers, so I have most of them. There's one team I don't have a sticker for, so I wasn't able to turn them all into magnets just yet. And there's some classics as well. So just as like a free plug for the Tops ones, they have the Kings. That's a really cool one. I do like the Rangers from 1963-64 and the Penguins 67-68. And an oddity is that when the Oilers came into the league in 78-79, that was their logo. So that's an oddity. And one of the selling points for me is Minnesota North Stars being in there because how many Minnesota North Stars magnets do I have? Well, now I have one. So that's a start. So that being said, let's go ahead and talk about buyers, sellers, and standing pat. Okay, so standing pat means not making a move. And when Pat Quinn was the GM of the Vancouver Canucks, after a while, he was known as Stan Pat because he made big deals when he arrived there and then he stopped. Brian Burke did that too. He made big deals when he took over and then he stopped. GMs do this where they'll make big deals and then I like the core the way it is. This is my team. So that being said, let's go ahead and start with the Anaheim Ducks. Are they standing pat? Are they sellers? You know, they're far enough out of the playoffs. I'll put them as sellers. I'm not sure how many assets they have right now that other teams are necessarily looking for. And that's the question. They're not going to give up their young assets. They have a young team. And most of the veterans, what Goodbranson? Maybe they've rejuvenated Goodbranson's career and they can turn him for more. Maybe Delzato. It's not going to be a lot. I mean, if they do sell off, maybe Ryan Miller goes somewhere at the deadline. But they're not going to be buyers, and I don't know about standing pat either because they need to build for the future. Arizona, yeah, Arizona I think is good now. I think the Taylor Hall trade means the Coyotes are good. They are staying where they are. Boston, I got a bad feeling. I had a bad feeling Boston's going to end up being a buyer at the deadline. That somehow, some way, Don Sweeney's going to try to find a way to make this work. And Tim Sweeney, I haven't said that name in ages. But Don Sweeney is, I think he's going to try to pull something off. This team has had its struggles over the last month and a bit. The win over Nashville last night being nice and all. I think, and again, with this, I'm not going to get into salary cap because there's going to be people who say, well, this team doesn't have cap space. Look what Calgary did this week. If teams need to make cap space, they'll make cap space. So, yeah, Boston, I think they're buyers. Buffalo, I don't think Buffalo's going to sell. They may move somebody. They may, but I think it'll be a hockey trade. I don't think they're going to be sellers. They're definitely not buyers either. They're not in a position where they're going to be selling off future assets. That's not where they're at right now. Because if a team calls and says, so that young goaltender of yours, the right answer is to hang up. So that Dylan Cousins, the right answer is to hang up. So I don't think Buffalo's going to make big moves either. Calgary, I think there's some pressure in Calgary. I think they're going to be buyers on some limited number. Now, Brad Treliving's come out and said, yeah, we're not looking at making any moves right now. And I agree with him on that. But I think if they can make maybe a minor deal at the deadline, I think they'll make a move to upgrade their roster. I don't think they're contenders just yet, but we'll see. Carolina, I think Carolina's made their move. They've signed Justin Williams. I think they're good. I think stand pat. Carolina, that's where they're at. And with this list, I'm not any closer to one or the other. This isn't a chart like the buy and the panic index, so no need to argue and complain. Chicago's in that right middle ground, right? I do think that if Stan Bowman finds a deal that will make an improvement for the team's future, he's got to listen. And I'm talking about the goaltenders right now. The Crawford Leonard situation. Leonard should be signed to an extension. I don't know what that does for Crawford, and there might be a deal that comes in on Crawford that may be too good for him to refuse. I don't know that Bowman will be making phone calls to market guys, but I know that if the phone rings, he should answer it. Be interesting to see what Chicago does from here. There is some money that if they can get it off the books, I think they'd be happy with that. And yet they're not really in a position either where they could put themselves as buyers because they don't have future assets that they're going to want to give up. Colorado, I think if Colorado can make an addition or two at the deadline, I think they'll do it. I don't think it's going to be anything major. I think there's going to be some movement. I don't think, again, won't be anybody major. I think most of the moves that are going to get made were made by Sakic in the offseason. Columbus, Columbus has this cap space. And people may think that Columbus is going to be a big player. I don't get the feeling that just because you have the cap space doesn't mean you have to spend it. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say you just keep it. Because you've got these guys out with injury. You've got to think they're going to come back. And maybe that solves the problem. So with Columbus, I think maybe just stand pat. Wait to get healthy. Now that could change if by deadline time it doesn't look like they're going to get healthy. But I think for right now, there's no reason to go out and acquire a bunch of assets or give up a whole lot to get those assets. So I'll put Columbus under stand pat. Dallas needs something. Dallas definitely, I think if they can add another forward, I think they'll do it. I think Dallas can be qualified as a buyer for that reason. That, yeah, if the right deal comes along, Jim Nill definitely would take it in order to add assets. I would worry about them sending away some kind of features in return because I don't think Dallas is a contender this year, but when they added Pavelski, I think they let everybody know, hey, we think we're going to take a run at this. We've got Pavelski and Perry added. So with that veteran presence, I think there's some pressure there to add. Detroit's definitely going to listen to offers. And I know people are going to say, well, what do they have to sell? Right, but if somebody makes a phone call about a Mike Green or about a Trevor Daley or about somebody like that, Detroit's going to listen. And they're, again, Steve Yzerman, he's going to be looking for depth. He's going to be looking for diamonds in the rough, sort of like, Fabry in a bad situation in St. Louis where he's not getting into the lineup. You want to look for where Puljujarvi could end up? He could end up in Detroit. Puljujarvi could be a huge pickup for Detroit. And they don't have to give up a whole lot to get him, is highly likely. I would think that the asking price for Puljujarvi right now would be lower than it was, say, at last year's draft. So Detroit should be in the market to move out a veteran or two. Edmonton, we always talk about Edmonton and whether or not McDavid's going to be happy long term. And I think in the name of McDavid and Draisaitl's happiness, I think the Oilers are going to be making phone calls. If they can get a winger, they're going to do everything they can to get one. And Yamamoto coming up and playing as he has definitely relieves some of that pressure for Ken Holland. But if he can add one more player, the Oilers can be legit for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Right now they are on the fringes. They've had a couple of good wins recently. Look pretty good against Toronto. They had that big win over Boston. But being able to sustain it and stay in a playoff spot, I think they could be buyers at the deadline. Florida, I don't think there's any pressure on Florida right now. I think they're outside of the playoffs as I'm recording this. But I don't think there's any pressure that would require any kind of moves at the deadline. I don't know that they make any big moves. Like, for instance, let's say Kreider's available. I don't think Florida's in the market for him. whereas I think the Oilers would jump on that. Boston might even call and see if there's some kind of offer they can make. Calgary would definitely be on that as well, but I can't see it with Florida. Florida can score. Their goaltending has had some issues. Their defense has had some issues, but I think they're okay. LA's going to be listening to offers. I don't think I have a whole lot to add to that. LA's going to be listening to offers at the deadline. Toffoli is way overhyped right now as a guy that's going to get picked up at the deadline. I mean, I'm being honest. I think Tyler Toffoli is going to be the overhyped addition at the deadline. This year's Ryan Dzingel, where people are going to be like, oh, this is a big addition. And then they're going to look at what LA gets back and they go, really, that's it? That's it for Toffoli? And that's what happens at the deadline. You usually get one guy who's kind of overhyped at the deadline. Minnesota, I don't know what Minnesota does. I'm going to go with Stan Pat because they're not going to give up future assets because, again, somebody's going to call and go, so that Kaprizov guy in KHL, hang up. Hang up now, Bill Guerin, hang up. And there aren't really veterans on this team that I can think of that they're just going to move out without making it a hockey trade. So I can't see them being sellers. I can't see them being buyers. I think Minnesota, and for their fans, they're kind of stuck where they're at. Montreal's kind of being forced into this position, aren't they? Montreal's 7 points out of the playoffs. They may be forced into being sellers. Montreal may very well be in a similar situation to Anaheim. I'm not sure what players on Montreal teams are going to call about, but those phone calls are going to start, especially if they fall 9 points back, 10 points back. Those phone calls are going to start to Mark Bergevin with, we like this player that's a veteran. Are you looking at selling him? And then for Montreal, they'd be foolish not to look at getting more prospects and draft picks back. They have a bright future in Montreal according to their prospect pool, but the present it's been a rocky ride, and I don't know. I don't know how Montreal fans feel about things right now. I know there are some who'd like to see Bergevin go based on where the team's at, but there's no indication of him going anywhere, and I do think he's going to listen to offers at the deadline. I think with how far back they are now, I'm not sure that you have much of a choice. Nashville, I'm going to put them in the middle. I'm going to put them as Stan Pat for right now. You can't sell. You can't bring in Matt Duchene and a year later be selling. I know Ottawa did it. I know he was in Colorado and there were some rough times in Colorado, and there are some that are seeing a correlation between Nashville falling apart and Duchene showing up. It's a coincidence in my eyes, but he didn't make Rene have an .890 save percentage, and Saros fall in line with that and have an .890 save percentage as well. They're around .890. They might be .894, .893. You guys get the point. So Nashville, I don't know that. I mean, they're not going to be buyers, I don't think. I can't see it. Their defense is pretty solid unless they find a way to get a goaltender, but you're not going to carry three, so right? So I don't think Nashville's going to be in the market to do much. New Jersey, Jersey's going to be selling. I don't know who. I don't know what they get, but they're going to be selling. The Islanders, Lou Lamoriello's going to keep things pretty quiet at the deadline, I think. I can't see Lou Lamoriello making a big deal. The Rangers, you know what? The Rangers are not far enough back. I know everybody's waiting for the Chris Kreider deal. I don't think the Rangers are far enough back to make that deal. For right now, for where they're at right now, for games in hand they have, I can't see them selling at the deadline. They are going to listen to offers on Kreider, but it has to be at least somewhat tempting, the idea of holding onto him and trying to keep him, trying to re-sign him. Now, if they can't, maybe, but maybe they make a hockey trade. They're not that far out. You don't necessarily want to burn that bridge and have to send out a letter to your season ticket holders again. Sorry, we could have made the playoffs, but the rental price we got for Chris Kreider was too high, and we sold him. So, whoops. Or maybe the Rangers can survive without Kreider, but I don't see them selling right now. Ottawa, on any veteran talent that's expiring this year, they'll listen to offers. Ottawa is near the bottom of the league. They're going to listen to offers. Philadelphia, I think Philadelphia, if they can improve at the deadline, I think they will. And I know there's people who are going to be saying, well, what about some of those Stan Pat teams? If they can improve at the deadline, they will. Yeah, but I think Philadelphia might have more urgency. And I'm not sure how you fix it. I don't know if it's necessarily blue line help you're looking for more than up front. I think if they can get rid of Gostisbehere, they'll do it. And I think that trade market could heat up as we get closer to the deadline. I think Gostisbehere is the one that, if anybody's going to go, that's probably who it's going to be. But I could see them being buyers. The thing is, if they're getting rid of Gostisbehere, does that mean that they're just trying to make a hockey trade? Because they're still in a playoff race. It's been a rough last couple of weeks, but they're still in that race. Pittsburgh, I don't see Pittsburgh buying. I don't see Pittsburgh selling. I see Pittsburgh standing where they're at, and we'll see what they're doing in the playoffs. People talk about the 2021 expansion draft, and they could lose Matt Murray to Seattle if they protect Jarry. You know when they worry about that? They worry about that in the middle of next season. You don't worry. Seattle should not be on the minds of GMs right now other than just as a curiosity. Just looking over your roster going, well, we might lose this guy to Seattle. Maybe we might want to move. Forget it. I think that's about as far as it's going to go. I don't think there's any pressure in Pittsburgh right now. Crosby's going to come back. A lot of the players are going to come back. They may look to make some sort of an upgrade. I know there was talk of them trading Galchenyuk. If they can afford to get rid of Galchenyuk, I think it's just we're getting rid of this guy. It's not a sell. It's not a buy that they're picking up veterans. It's just this guy doesn't work for us. This isn't going to work. San Jose, I guess they're sellers. They're too far out to make the playoffs. They're not going to make the playoffs. So I guess they're sellers. I guess. The problem is they don't own their own first-round draft pick. So they may be sellers who are looking to pick up a first-round draft pick just to try to save some face. But again, for San Jose, may be a case of which player our team's going to be calling about. Because again, the UFA market is not going to end up being very strong this summer. But by all means, watch the unrestricted free agency draft live stream, or the free agent day live stream on July 1st. That's a fantastic day for this channel. It's a lot of fun. I don't think there's going to be a lot of big names on it, though. St. Louis. St. Louis isn't going to make any major moves that I can see. Again, there may be some minor tinkering, but why mess with the defending Stanley Cup champions? Why? It's no point. You don't mess with a defending Stanley Cup champion. It's just not a good idea. The only time I can remember a team winning a Stanley Cup and then making major changes and it working is Pittsburgh from 92 to 93. Or from 91 to 92, where they actually kind of made their team even better for the 92 Stanley Cup run. So St. Louis, I don't see making any major moves. Tampa, I don't see any reason to think Tampa needs to do a whole lot either. For cap reasons, they're not going to want to add somebody expensive. I don't think they're going to want to give up a bunch of future assets either to pick up a rental. I don't think there's a whole lot of pressure considering the 8-game winning streak they're on. Toronto, if Toronto can add, they will. I think if Toronto can add, they will. I think there's a lot of pressure on Toronto because of expiring contracts and salary cap issues. I think there's pressure on Toronto to win this year to the point where I could see Kyle Dubas trying to make a big splash at the deadline. I could see like a Wayne Simmons going from New Jersey to Toronto, just as an example. Simmons would kind of, it would satisfy some people and maybe some coaches who think the team's too soft, and at the same time, he doesn't sacrifice skill. He still has that top 9 skill. Not top 6, but he can play on your third line. And the physicality is still there. So that's the kind of move I think Toronto could end up making. And again, salary cap is going to be an issue. Vancouver, I hate to think Vancouver's going to be a buyer. I'd be even more upset, though, if they were sellers. I think they're going to have to stand pat. I think with where everything's at right now, I don't think there's a choice. I think they're going to have to stay where they're at. Vegas, I don't think Vegas is going to do a whole lot at the deadline either. Yeah, it's Vegas. I don't have the logo for. It's on the way. It's in the mail. Can't wait to get it. Because then I'm going to have all 31 in this design, and then it won't look silly to have the Vegas logo that way. But I don't think Vegas needs to make big changes. I know there are Vegas fans who want to see certain players go, but I don't think they're going to be in a sell mode. I don't think they're going to be in a buying mode either. I think they did that last year. I think adding Mark Stone, adding guys like Stastny and Pacioretty, I think management's pretty happy with the way things are. I don't think there's going to be any big changes. Capitals, I don't think there's going to be any big changes with the Capitals either. No reason to buy or sell if you're the Caps. No reason to panic with anything. They're number one in the NHL. That might be a reason to panic. But yeah, so the Capitals, I think, are in pretty good shape. I don't see any reason to think that they're going to be buying at the deadline, because I don't think that they need to. Winnipeg. Winnipeg's an interesting one. I do think Winnipeg is going to test the market. I think Winnipeg's in a position where they don't have to win now, but it'd be kind of nice if they did. I think they're going to look to make some improvement on their blue line. Beaulieu's going to be out for a month. I didn't mention that in the news of the day. I should have. Should have mentioned it the other day in the news of the day, actually. Beaulieu's going to be out for a minimum of a month, and I think if they can add a blue liner, they will. So you want to look for a spot where maybe Gostisbehere ends up, maybe Winnipeg picks up the phone and talks to them, and then they work out a hockey trade. Hockey trades are completely different from what's on this board. I think all 31 GMs, if they have a chance to make a hockey trade, which is, hey, I have an extra defenseman, you have an extra forward. Why, yes, this is true. We should make an exchange. I agree. That's a hockey trade. We don't see that very often anymore. It's sad. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below regarding who you think will be buyers and sellers at deadline time. And in 2 weeks' time, we'll see if I can do this again. Because, again, I don't know how much things are going to change over 2 weeks. They can. But, yeah, I thought this would be a fun thing to do rather than the Panic Index. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And, hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.